My name is Madeline Brooks, I'm 33, and 4 years after my older brother stole the inheritance our grandfather left me, he walked back into my parents' house wearing a grin that made my stomach turn. He looked me up and down, glanced at the keys hanging from my purse, and laughed. "Still renting?" he actually said. My mom forced out a nervous smile. My dad stared at his coffee. Nobody told him to stop. I did something that confused everyone. I smiled back. Because the envelope hidden inside my tote bag was worth a lot more than the house my brother thought he had stolen. But that envelope wasn't the biggest surprise waiting for him that afternoon. The person who rang the front doorbell exactly 12 minutes later would destroy every lie my brother had spent 4 years building. If someone had told me years earlier that my own brother would smile while taking away the only thing Grandpa wanted me to have, I would have called them crazy. Back then, I believed family meant loyalty. I believed promises mattered. I believed a handwritten will couldn't simply disappear. I was wrong. 4 years earlier, Grandpa William Brooks passed away peacefully in Asheville, North Carolina. I was 29, working long shifts as a physical therapist. And spending every weekend helping him around his little farmhouse while my older brother, Nathan Brooks, only showed up when neighbors were watching. At the funeral, everyone called him the devoted grandson. I stayed quiet. Grandpa always told me something I'd never forget. The loudest people usually carry the smallest hearts. At the time, I thought he was talking about strangers. I had no idea he was warning me about someone sitting in the very first row of his own funeral. The reading of Grandpa's will happen 3 days later inside a small law office in downtown Asheville. I remember every detail because it was the day my family quietly divided itself into 2 sides. Mr. Harrison, Grandpa's attorney, adjusted his glasses and unfolded a copy of the will. My farmhouse, the surrounding land, and my investment account are to be left to my granddaughter, Madeline Brooks, in recognition of the years she spent caring for me. For one beautiful second, I forgot how to breathe. Then Nathan laughed. Not a nervous laugh. A confident one. Mr. Harrison frowned, reached into his briefcase, and suddenly his expression changed. He looked from one document to another before clearing his throat. I'm afraid there's been an update. An update? Grandpa had died. How could there be an update? Nathan slid another envelope across the table. My grandfather changed his mind 2 weeks before he passed. Mom squeezed my hand. Dad wouldn't even look at me. The new document left almost everything to Nathan. The farmhouse. The land. The accounts. Even Grandpa's old pickup truck. I received $1. Exactly $1. I stared at the signature. It looked like Grandpa's. But something about it felt wrong. I couldn't explain why. Afterward, everyone hugged Nathan like he'd won some kind of award. He walked outside carrying the keys to Grandpa's farmhouse, stopped beside me, and whispered just loud enough for me to hear. "Hard work doesn't always pay, Maddie." Then he drove away in Grandpa's truck. That night I sat alone in my tiny apartment outside Charlotte, surrounded by cardboard boxes because my lease was ending. I cried until there were no tears left. Not because I'd lost the money. Because I'd lost the last promise Grandpa ever made to me. 2 weeks later, I returned to the farmhouse to collect the few personal things Nathan had allowed me to keep. Grandpa's old rocking chair was gone. His watch collection was gone. Even the family photo albums had disappeared. Nathan was already remodeling the place. He smiled as contractors carried furniture past me. "Time to move on," he said. I nodded like I believed him. But before leaving, I noticed something strange. Mr. Harrison's assistant hurried out of the office carrying several legal files. She accidentally dropped one near the parking lot. Before she picked it up, I caught a glimpse of a yellow sticky note attached to the folder. It had Grandpa's case number. And 3 handwritten words that made absolutely no sense. Original never located. For the next 4 years, I tried to convince myself to let it go. I buried myself in work. I picked up extra patience. I moved into a modest apartment in Raleigh and built a life that looked peaceful from the outside. But every birthday, every Thanksgiving, every Christmas, someone would casually mention Grandpa's farmhouse. Nathan had turned it into a luxury vacation rental. People online called it the Brooks Heritage Retreat. The place Grandpa built with his own hands had become a weekend photo backdrop for strangers. Then, one rainy Tuesday, everything changed. I received a phone call from a number I didn't recognize. "Is this Madeline Brooks?" "Yes. My name is Olivia Grant. I worked as Mr. Harrison's legal assistant 4 years ago." The name hit me immediately. She was the woman who had dropped that file in the parking lot. "I've been trying to find you," she said quietly. My heart started racing. "There are things you deserve to know." We met that evening in a small coffee shop outside Asheville. Olivia looked nervous enough to check the windows every few minutes before sliding a worn manila envelope across the table. I should have spoken years ago. Inside were photocopies of legal notes, email records, and one document that made my hands freeze. Grandpa had signed 2 wills. The first one left everything to me. The second one, the one presented after his death, had been submitted only days before he passed away. "I always thought something wasn't right," Olivia whispered. Mr. Harrison questioned the signature himself, but before he could request a forensic review, he suddenly retired. The file was closed, and nobody wanted to reopen it. I stared at the pages. The signature looked almost identical. Almost. Then Olivia pointed to one small detail. "Your grandfather never signed with a blue fountain pen." I blinked. "What?" "He always used the same black rollerball. Every legal document in our office for 12 years was signed with that pen. But the final will," she tapped the page, "was signed in blue ink. A tiny detail. One that everyone had ignored. Except Grandpa had spent his entire life telling me, details tell the truth." Olivia wasn't finished. She reached into her purse and handed me a flash drive. "I copied these before I left the firm." "What is it?" "Security footage." "From where?" She looked me straight in the eyes. "The law office." I felt my pulse pounding in my ears. "The footage is from the afternoon your brother claimed Grandpa personally delivered the new will." I swallowed hard. "Did he?" Olivia slowly shook her head. "No." She leaned closer, lowering her voice until it was almost a whisper. "The cameras show only one person walking into that office with the envelope. Nathan." Before I could say another word, my phone buzzed. A family group message. "Nathan, family barbecue this Saturday. Haven't seen everyone in years. Hope you're still renting." I stared at the screen. Then I looked at the envelope. And the flash drive. For the first time in 4 years, I realized my brother hadn't invited me home to celebrate. He had invited me because he thought I'd never discover what was already sitting in my hands. Saturday arrived with bright blue skies, the kind Grandpa used to call honest weather. As I pulled into my parents' driveway, Nathan was already outside, laughing with neighbors like he owned the entire street. The farmhouse had made him wealthy, and he wore that confidence like an expensive suit. The moment he spotted my 10-year-old sedan, he smirked. "There she is." Everyone turned toward me. Nathan looked at my car, then at me, and grinned. "Still renting?" He actually laughed after saying it. A few people chuckled awkwardly. I didn't. Instead, I smiled and walked inside carrying the same manila envelope Olivia had given me. Dad noticed it immediately. "What's that?" "You'll see." Lunch barely lasted 20 minutes before Nathan stood up holding a glass of sweet tea. "I just wanted to thank everyone who supported me these last few years. Grandpa would have been proud seeing what I did with the property." He smiled directly at me. "Some people inherit opportunities. They just don't know what to do with them." Silence. Then I quietly placed the envelope in front of him. "Open it." His smile faded. "What is this?" "Go ahead." He opened the envelope. First came the copy of Grandpa's original will. Then Olivia's sworn statement. Then the security camera photographs showing Nathan entering Mr. Harrison's office alone with the so-called updated will. His face lost every bit of color. Before he could speak, the front door opened. Olivia walked inside. Right behind her came Mr. Harrison himself. Older. Retired. But carrying another folder. "I think," he said calmly, "it's time this family heard the truth." Nobody moved. Mr. Harrison placed a sealed evidence envelope on the dining table. I remained silent because I lacked proof. Until 2 months ago. He opened the folder. The original will was discovered inside a mislabeled probate archive during a routine records review. He carefully laid the document beside the forged version. Even my father gasped. The signatures were similar until you looked closely. One was signed with Grandpa's familiar black rollerball. The other with blue fountain ink. The forensic report confirmed what nobody wanted to believe. The second will had been forged. Nathan suddenly stood. "This is ridiculous." "No," Mr. Harrison interrupted. "It is a felony." Nathan looked around the room, searching for someone to defend him. No one did. Mom slowly covered her mouth. Dad lowered his eyes. For the first time in years, Nathan wasn't the golden child. He was simply a man caught by the truth. Then Dad turned toward me. With tears in his eyes, he said something I'd waited 4 years to hear. "I failed you, Maddie. I'm sorry." That mattered more than the farmhouse ever could. 3 months later, the probate court restored Grandpa's original wishes. The farmhouse, the land, and every remaining asset were legally transferred to me. I could have sold everything. Instead, I restored Grandpa's home exactly the way he loved it. The front porch. The old swing. Even the weathered mailbox. Nathan accepted a plea agreement, performed community service, paid restitution, and disappeared from our town. I haven't heard from him since. Last spring, I finally moved into Grandpa's farmhouse. Not because it made me rich. Because it finally felt like home. Sometimes I sit on the porch at sunset, holding Grandpa's old black rollerball pen. It reminds me of something he used to say whenever I helped him organize old papers. People can steal money, land, and even your name for a while. But the truth always signs in its own handwriting.